Welcome to Great Loop Lifestyles. I'm Kim Russo with America's Great Loop Cruisers Association, and today we are in Beaufort, North Carolina. Not to be confused with Beaufort, South Carolina, which is where we were a month or so ago. Both towns, interestingly enough, are named after the Duke of Beaufort, or Beaufort. Uh, Spelled exactly the same, pronounced differently. I have no other information on why it has evolved as such or what the actual pronunciation of the Duke's title is, but this is Beaufort, North Carolina. The town itself dates back to 1709 and is very rich in maritime history, initially founded as a fishing village, basically, and originally known as Fishtown. Today it has a population of about 4,000, and its maritime traditions extend to shipbuilding and lots of pirate and privateer activity in this area, and we'll tell you more about that in a moment. But one of the things that I recommend you do as a way to get started is one of these cart tours in Beaufort. We did a Beaufort Cart Tours, that was the name of the company, and it was a fabulous job of kind of exploring the town and showing us some of the history, giving us some of the stories behind it. And it primarily focused on the architecture of the different homes from the different eras, but also talked a lot about the town itself. Drove down Front Street, so we saw all of the shops and restaurants, and our tour guide gave us some recommendations there. But the historic district here is on the National Register of Historic Places. There are 150 restored historic homes, and there are town plaques that are at the doorways of a lot of these homes, giving you a little bit of the date information and who originally owned the home. So, um, very much like Southport or Georgetown, South Carolina, but on a much larger scale. Another thing to check out, we actually saw it as part of the cart tour, but Hammock House is the oldest building in Beaufort. It dates back to 1700 and was apparently a big hideout and hangout for Blackbeard back in his day. So lots of rumors of hauntings there because of some of the things and the shenanigans and goings on there during pirate days. Another place we visited on the golf cart tour was the old burying ground, and this is another place you could actually tour on your own if you chose. There were some really fascinating stories about some of the people who were buried here, dating back hundreds of years. Our tour guide filled us in on an app you can download to your phone called UniGuide. It's UNI Guide, UniGuide. It is a series of self-guided tours from cities all over the country, and there happens to be an audio self-guided tour through this app of this burying ground here in Beaufort. So it's a great way to hear those stories on a self-guided tour about some of the people buried there. Also of note as an attraction is the Rachel Carson Reserve. This is a wildlife and nature reserve, and it is situated on an island just across from the town itself, but also across from Beaufort Docks, which is where we tied up. And a highlight for us was looking out one morning and we could see wild horses on the island across from the boat, which is a really neat thing to see. It's also a great place to paddle, and unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate enough for us to paddle our paddle boards over there. But if you are a nature lover, definitely don't miss the Rachel Carson Reserve, just right there off of the marina. Next up is the North Carolina Maritime Museum. Beaufort is a great place to have such a museum because of its maritime history and tradition. There are huge sections in the museum that are dedicated to pirates and specifically Blackbeard, since he is known to have spent some time in Beaufort and since his ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, was located not far from Beaufort. So there's a big exhibit related to the ship itself and to Blackbeard with some artifacts from the ship. Really fascinating to see some of those artifacts, and they have this kind of setup where an actor has portrayed Blackbeard on his ship. But all sorts of trinkets and items from the Queen Anne's Revenge are included there. There's also a lot on shipbuilding, and inside the museum itself, there is a big exhibit on different types of ships. But this is a workshop that's across the street where you can actually go and watch them working on some boats and see some antique outboard motors and all kinds of interesting stuff there across the street. And then, of course, the museum also covers the fishing history of North Carolina. So, a really good museum, pretty large by some of these small town museum standards, and a lot of great information for boaters. Next up, some of the shops for you to visit. If you've been following along, you know that we have developed a knack for arriving at places where things are closed. We arrived in Beaufort at just about 12:30 in the afternoon, and the first thing we did was head out for a little bit of a walk and to stop into some of the shops. We just missed the old Beaufort Farmers Market. I think we arrived a few minutes after 1 and it closed at 1, but there were lots of stalls set up and definitely encourage you to check that out. There's also a bakery that a member had been raving about the bread and went multiple times on their short trip to Beaufort. Are only open on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and we're closing at 2 on Saturday, so we arrived there before 1 to find out that they were completely sold out already for the day. It was the Saturday before Easter, so that likely had a lot to do with it. But a recommendation from another looper that you might want to check if you are there at the appropriate times and they have any stock left. But there were plenty of shops open when we arrived on that Saturday, as well as the next day on Easter Sunday, and we stayed even an additional day because the weather was continuing to be substantially windy. The general store that you see there, that white building, is one that I'm naming specifically because they have a little bit of everything in there. It really is kind of an old-fashioned general store. But all along Front Street, which is what you see here, there are small shops specializing in boat-friendly clothing, gifts, shoes, everything you can imagine, as well as lots of restaurants. So lots of home decor, just a really quaint little shopping district there on Front Street. And another one that naming out specifically is Bodega. And one of the things interesting about this is its main entrance is actually on the Harbor Walk side, the river side. So stepping off a boat from Beaufort Docks, it's right there and it's set up to be friendly for things that you might need aboard. So they've got snack items, wine, cheese, those types of things, as well as a lot of gifts and other little things you might need while you're aboard. Adjacent to Bodega is a restaurant called Black Sheep, and that was a pizza restaurant, kind of craft pizzas, thin crust. We ducked in there to get out of the cold, but one of the things about that particular restaurant, Black Sheep and Bodega, as I said, there's a main entrance is there on the boat side, there along that boardwalk. They also have entrances on Front Street, but it's very boat friendly. We were literally steps away from both of those places. Another eatery that we enjoyed was Crew. Crew is both a coffee shop, and you see it there one morning when I was getting my coffee, and then kind of next door, but there's a walk-through inside the building. It is a wine bar that has entertainment most evenings, so that place was always crowded in the evenings when we walked by. And again, if you've been following along, you know my quest is to find the best ice cream on the loop. Beaufort Creamery had a strong entry. Once again, I got 2 scoops. One was honey flavored ice cream, and one was a special that was cookie flavored, but it was Biscoff cookies, and I love those. So that was a really good ice cream. Not sure it was the best. I'll still keep checking to see what I can find. Ribeyes also deserves a mention. It's right there on Front Street, and it's reasonably priced for steak, and also has a pretty good sized salad bar, which is something I haven't seen, I don't think, since COVID. So that was enjoyable, and the best by far restaurant we dined at in Beaufort was Beaufort Grocery. This was recommended to us by many people, so we made a reservation and enjoyed an evening there with the crews of Maggie Joe, Sojourn, Long Recess, and one of our friends from Wanderer from a few fleets ago on the Great Loop. And it was an enjoyable night, huge portions. Everyone's entrees were really well prepared and delicious, so definitely suggest making some reservations there. And finally, we tied up at Beaufort Docks. There are a few other marina choices a little bit further from all of the downtown action that are certainly viable choices, and some of our other boats that joined us at Beaufort Grocery did tie up at those other marinas. We loved Beaufort Docks. It was just in the perfect place. As I said, steps away from restaurants and shops, a view of wild horses at the Rachel Carson Reserve. You really can't do much better than that. So we ended up, I believe, with a 4-night stay. Again, we extended one day because of weather. There is plenty to see and do in Beaufort, so it is absolutely a highly recommended stop. We will be back shortly with a Great Loop lifestyle coming to you from Belhaven, North Carolina. Thank you for watching.